Hi, and welcome to part 2 of Why is My Baby Not Sleeping? My name is Roxanne Atkinson. I'm a clinical occupational therapist, a mom of 2, and the author of the Unicorn Baby book, which has been read by many people all over the world to help them have more realistic expectations of themselves as parents and also of their baby, according to neuroscience and evidence. Today, we're going to be looking at the second part as to why my baby is not sleeping. If you haven't seen the first part, go and have a look at that because we cover some stuff. But let's jump into this one. Today, we're really focusing in on a hunger, which you may not have heard of before. It's called social hunger. Right, let's get to where we need to go. Okay, so first of all, here's a disclaimer. This video serves to educate and empower you. It does not replace a consult with a health professional. Please see your local care team should you have any concerns about you or your baby's health. So this is information to help you understand sleep better. It's not in place of a medical consult. Okay, so why are we having a closer look at social hunger? So it's important that you know that a lot of the advice that you've been given about how to help your baby sleep or how to teach your baby to sleep is not actually supported in terms of evidence or in terms of what we know as neurodevelopmental protective care. So the support of rigid schedules, separating sleep and feed events, using cry it out, or the idea that there are superior ways to put your baby to sleep, that is not backed by science. Those are cultural ideas, and they're quite new cultural ideas, although they are quite prolific. Okay, so in part 1, we looked at sleep hunger, and we spoke about how you can use sensory hunger to promote sleep pressure or to increase sleep pressure. We also looked at how you can use the 2 biological sleep regulators to make it easier for your baby to find sleep. The first, I'm just going to make this bigger so you can see nicely. The first biological sleep regulator was the sleep-wake homeostat, and that was the idea that the longer you're awake, the more sleepy you feel, the more toxins there are in your brain, and the greater your urge to sleep to protect your brain. And the second sleep regulator was the circadian clock, which is governed by light going into your baby's eyes. And we used that clock to help us find sleep more easily for our baby. So go back to part 1, if that's not sounding familiar, and have a look at the strategies that we can use from those. Okay, so let's go back here. So today we're looking at another kind of hunger. Like I said in part 1, there are 4 types of hunger, but today we're going to specifically be zoning in on social hunger. Social hunger knowing more about social hunger is going to help you understand why things like not being able to look at your baby in the eye at nighttime, or not touching your baby after you've put them down to sleep, or why your baby used to sleep so well and now they keep waking up and calling out for you by name during the night and you don't know what to do. All those kind of questions, I think once you understand social hunger, it's going to make a lot more sense to you as to what you need to do in those situations. Okay, so in this video, you're going to learn about social hunger, which is also called attachment. You're going to learn about responsive caregiving, which is known as attunement. You're going to learn about separation anxiety, and then how to apply what you've learned about each of these things to help your baby find sleep more easily. Okay, so as in part 1, if you look at social hunger, across the page diagonally is food hunger. Now, so much focus gets put on food hunger that when babies wake at night, often parents will tell me, but they're not hungry, so why are they waking? So waking up is a survival strategy. It helps the baby to check in with its caregivers, which makes sure that it stays warm, stays dry, and really just knows that, they haven't been left behind. They're not at risk of dying, really. So nighttime is seen as quite a dangerous time for babies. We want them waking up so they're practicing breathing. They're practicing waking up because, remember, they've been in a dark room, and so they weren't doing all of those things before. So yes, when your baby wakes at night, you're welcome to use the most wonderful tool ever that we've been given, breasts. And if you're not breastfeeding your baby, if you're bottle feeding your baby, absolutely, you can bottle feed them, and always contact feeds are better. We don't want to be holding a bottle over the cot. For the eustachian tubes, for digestion, you really want to be able to prop your baby up nicely and be giving the bottle in your arms as if you were breastfeeding. But I wanted to look more deeply today at social hunger, and I'm not going to go into food hunger very much. We'll do that in part 3. But I really wanted you to understand that your baby has more needs than a Tamagotchi. Do you remember Tamagotchi? There were those little toys that you had to feed or change their nappy like every half hour or they died. Babies are a lot more complex than that. And so I want to just teach you a little bit more today about the part of the brain that's connected to socio-emotional function. Okay. So let's look, what is social hunger? Social hunger is a normal biological drive to build positive relationships with others. When your social hunger is met, you feel connected and safe. Social hunger pushes us to belong to our family, community, and ultimately society. Humans dedicate a huge amount of brain space to social learning because our survival relies on it. Human babies are exceptionally vulnerable and require adults to meet their needs 24/7 to survive and thrive. Social hunger is met through the senses such as touch, sight, hearing, and smell, and also through shared experiences like meals, songs, dances, and rituals. Okay, so when I say rituals, a lot of our Western audience will be like, we don't practice rituals. We're not, in deepest, darkest Africa. But being in South Africa, having traveled, every culture, every society has a ritual. Sometimes a ritual is the way we bath or the way we do dinner. Sometimes it's how we say goodnight. But all of us have little rituals that we do. And I think in Western society, affirmations are becoming a more common ritual in many families. Okay, so this dark room, the difficulty that your baby has once they are born is that they go from being in contact with you 24/7, being fed through the umbilical cord, and being just surrounded in your senses. So they are smelling and tasting your amniotic fluid. They are feeling your movements. They're hearing your voice. And from that, they get disconnected by the umbilical cord being cut. But psychologically, or from a brain point of view, they still feel like they are one with you. So they are still wanting to be synchronous, which is why babies in the 4th trimester love being in contact. They love being carried, they love being held, and they often sleep better when they have contact. And it's just because that is what they are primed for. That is what they need to grow and to thrive. So remember that our goals in the first year are to build trust, to bond, and to experience joy together. Those are the 3 ingredients for healthy brain development. Not sleeping through the night, not only feeding once a night. All of those things are cultural fallacies that I want you to just put to the side for now. And you can always send me some questions about them if I don't answer them in this presentation, but I'm hoping I will. Okay, so remember again, you cannot force your baby to eat, sleep, or poop. It's impossible. These things are governed very much by your body and by your brain and by your age and stage. Okay, so we don't want there to be a power dynamic when it comes to feeding or sleeping or going to the toilet. So, how can you help sleep happen more easily? You can help sleep happen more easily by working to secure attachment. This can start during pregnancy. Many people sing, touch, experiment with their baby, putting cold glasses on their tummy and feeling them push against that. Having a look at your scans and imagining what your baby's going to look like, talking about baby names, all of those, having a cute little nickname for your baby, all of those things actually start to help prepare your mind for the fact that a new person is coming into your family. After birth, the sacred hour is a time where if there's no medical emergency for mom or baby, most of the care would be given with baby on mom's chest, like you can see in this picture. So in terms of bathing a baby or weighing a baby or putting a band on a baby, those things are not seen as urgent, and they can happen after this first sacred hour between mom and babe. And it's an amazing time of synchronizing where the mom's chest will warm up the baby will feel the most relaxed because they are smelling and tasting and hearing and touching mom. And that is the comfort they need after the big shock of entering the world. The good news is that research has shown that if your baby doesn't get the skin to skin straight after birth, you can still initiate skin to skin at any time, both with the caregivers and siblings, obviously with supervision. Okay, so the benefits of skin to skin are well documented. I'm going to put a summary of them here. So we know they promote overall parent and baby wellness, which is growth and thriving. They provide baby with safety and warmth. It increases your milk supply via regular feeding. It also provides skin to gut immunity, which is your baby's hands and mouth take in the microbiome from your skin and your breasts and your body. And again, if you are planning to bottle feed, for whatever reason, this is something you can do. Pop your finger in their mouth. They can still be on your chest. And actually, the more skin-to-skin contact they do, the better chance of them kind of matching their environment, because obviously you've been living out in the world. Your body knows what sort of nasty germs that your baby is going to come in contact with. And so doing the skin to skin is going to help them kind of start preparing their immunity. Okay, it's interesting too, skin to skin reduces perception of pain for both mom and baby. So often doctors like to do any kind of aftercare for mom with the baby on her chest too, because often you're so distracted by your beautiful newborn baby that you need less painkillers. Aside, if you are in exceptional pain, especially if you've had a cesarean section or some stitching needed after vaginal birth, please ask for pain killers. Please don't let pain get in the way of you building synchronicity with your baby. Look after yourself and chat to your care providers. Skin to skin also aids deeper and longer sleep times for both mom and babe, and a reduction in postnatal anxiety. So there's a lot of evidence and personal stories of where a baby is removed from a mom and they battle to get its stats, which is its heart rate and oxygen levels, to a good level. And once they restore the baby to its mom, the baby's stats regulate, and also mom's sort of blood pressure and blood sugar and just their general state of being can calm. And it makes sense if it really is common sense. Moms want their babies to be safe. Babies want to be with their moms. So let's try to keep them together as much as possible. Okay. Now, I find this fascinating. So I think a lot of us are used to like doing something with training, which would mean you're going to run a marathon. So you practice running. But when it comes to becoming a caregiver for a baby, you don't need to practice, because in the act of caregiving, your brain changes. So your brain actually rewires itself so that your baby's cry is no longer awful. It no longer sends you running, which often before you had kids, if you heard a crying baby, it was just the worst noise and you wanted to get out of there. So with the rise of prolactin and oxytocin, both in pregnancy, through the birth, through feeding, and through holding and caring for a baby, your amygdala grows in size. So you actually switch on this part of your brain that is about survival, fight or flight. And it helps you become attuned. So I don't know if you've ever been at someone's house and they're a new mom and they're like, oh, my baby's crying, and you can't hear a thing. And somehow they knew before the monitor even sounded that their baby was awake and needed them. There's this amazing brain structure change that happens in parents. And I think what's important to know is that you actually can't turn this off. So that is why a lot of parents will say, like, I just want to sleep like I did before I had a baby, or when will I go back to not worrying so much? And unfortunately, those pathways are set up to ensure your baby's survival. So that's the changes that you're feeling, and they are physical changes. And then what's important to note is that children with secure attachment grow up to be happy, independent, and resilient adults. So, some of us are thinking about like what school or what food or what is going to ensure my kid does the best. And actually, all the studies keep coming back to this one factor, which is one committed caregiver that you securely attach to. And why is that so important? Because when you feel like you are safe and supported, you can free up your brain space, you can free up your nervous system to learn and explore and be curious. But if you're always wondering if you're safe, you're not going to have those same opportunities for learning and growth. And also, we replicate. So what we've had with one person, we find it easier to have with another. What we've had with a parent, we find it easier to have with a friend, or ultimately a partner. Okay, so how to help sleep happen more easily? There's also a concept called shared joy. So most of us will sleep better if we go to bed in a happy space than if we go to bed feeling insecure or anxious about something that's happened in our day. So babies are the same. They love eye-to-eye contact. They find that is very reassuring. And so you might find that your baby kind of holds your finger and looks at you with its eyes as it drifts off. And basically, they just kind of reassuring themselves. Someone's here. Someone's looking after me. I'm okay. So I often say to parents, you can fill that shared joy tank. You can fill that social hunger during the day too. It doesn't have to only be at night. And that's through eye-to-eye contact, and then also through pleasurable experiences together. So anything that is fun for you or that you enjoy, you find it relaxing, you find it soothing, share it with your baby, obviously within reason, not a glass of wine. So bath together, or take a walk together, or show your baby the flowers in your garden that you planted that are coming into bloom. And if you enjoy patting your dog, show your baby how you love stroking your dog. And basically what you're doing is you're looking at the dog, looking at your baby, smiling, and your baby is seeing this is pleasurable, this is fun. And as your baby grows bigger, you'll be throwing them up and down in the air or blowing raspberries, and they're laughing and looking at you, and you're really just having a good time together. This also causes structural changes in the brain, and it's easier for your baby to feel secure when they've had shared joy experiences during the day. But what's important is that you don't fake the fun. So what I mean by that is that if you are doing it just to tick a box, you're like, oh yes, I want you to sleep through the night, so let's do a Clamber Club class together, and you don't enjoy it, your baby's not going to have shared joy in that activity. And so don't worry. If you are not a messy play mom, don't use messy play as a shared joy activity. If you hate music, don't put music on. If you don't like dancing, don't use dancing. Use the things that you would do that bring you joy anyway. Again, within reason. Okay, no motorbike riding with your baby just yet. Okay, how to make sleep happen more easily. Another thing is called attunement, or bringing into harmony. So my biggest gripe with prescriptive schedules is that they get in the way of both attachment, shared joy, and attunement. But specifically attunement. So attunement is, okay, you've attached, you're sharing joy together. But in terms of the care that you're providing with your baby, who's a unique individual, how do you adapt that given the changes that are happening so rapidly to bring everyone into harmony? So you will know that there are certain ways, certain sounds that your baby makes where they need certain things, which might be to go onto your shoulder, or it might be, to get wrapped up. And those are things that you've learned through caring for your baby over time. So those are things that I don't want you to stop doing because somebody told you to, because somebody told you that that's going to, create a bad habit or something like that. Remember, you cannot spoil the baby. It's not like we can give too much love. It's not that we can create over-dependence on us as caregivers. Study after study also shows the more care we get, the more love we get, the more independent we are as adults. So it's counterintuitive. Trying to force your baby to become independent because you're ready for them to sleep through the night or to sleep wherever, that's not going to help your baby. And it's probably not going to help you in the long term either, because you're going to set up distress and you're going to set up anxiety in your home. Okay. I also tell parents a very helpful strategy is to apply the day, month, year strategy to the solution. So if you've been told, don't look at your baby, or don't say goodnight to your baby, or don't let your baby get out of bed after you've put them down, I'll say to parents, would this strategy still work tomorrow, next month, next year? Or would the strategy still work when they're 5 years old, 7 years old, 15 years old? And you can imagine if your 5-year-old came to you in the middle of the night because they'd woken up and you refused to look them in the eye, that would be really weird. And if your 7-year-old wanted to say goodnight to you and you refused to look at them and say goodnight, that would be very strange. That wouldn't be socially appropriate behavior, right? So yes, so we want to make sure that the strategies we're using are going to work for a long time and are going to help our child to be socially well adjusted rather than very strange. Okay, so I want to read you some research about the mice because I find this fascinating. And it's about responsive caregiving. Okay, so initial research in mice, this is page 73 in the Unicorn Baby book. So initial research in mice documented in a journal article called Variations in Maternal Care in the Rat as a Mediating Influence for the Effects of Environment on Development has shown that related and unrelated mice put in the care of loving mothers who are attentive and lick them caringly grow up to be better mothers themselves when they have pups. This effect is so strong that it can even stretch over 2 generations, with granddaughter mice being better mothers and better able to cope with stress too, all because their grandmother took care of their mother. These long-lasting benefits of good parenting in mice are dependent on chemical changes in their DNA. With love, the use it or lose it principle applies. If you receive love and care, certain areas of your brain dedicated to human relationships grow and become interconnected. However, neglect or lack of care will lead to a different chain of events in both DNA and brain structure. So your baby will benefit from the care that you received from your mother. But the good news is, even if you didn't receive good care from your mother, you can have an impact on both your child and your future grandchildren's DNA and caregiving by the way that you respond to your baby. Okay, so one of the biggest barriers to putting your baby to sleep easily is a factor called separation anxiety. Now, when babies are born, like I mentioned, they still feel like they are one with their mother. So when do they start to know that they are separate? It's usually when they start to move. So mobility is wonderful, but it does increase anxiety. And that's helpful because we don't want our babies just moving off into the sunset and not coming back to us because they wouldn't survive. So in order to help them survive, their anxiety levels go up once they're able to move away from us and they realize, I can leave mom can leave me. This is terrifying. I need to keep checking in. And so just like they'll check in during the day as to where you are, and they might want to even hold on to you a little bit more, at night will be the same. They will kind of startle and need to check where you are and that you're still there and you still love them in order to go back to sleep. Now, because your baby might have been sleeping better, this can be a really tough time because you've probably started doing things in a certain way and it was working for you. And often this stage of increased mobility is deemed manipulation or difficulty. And this is when people will start to be like, have I overstimulated my baby? Have I spoiled my baby? Do I need to make the cot sides higher? And actually no, what you need to do is to reassure your baby. And remember, independence will come. So I want to read you a story of one of my cases that I handled a few years ago. It's on page 172. It's called Jed's story. So Jed was a pretty good sleeper. When he was a newborn, he took to swaddling and loved his dummy and doo-doo toy. He was not easily startled by his pet dog's barking or his parents' household activities. He woke up reliably once a night for a feed and later could be put back to sleep pretty quickly if you popped his dummy back in his mouth. He was an early walker at 9 months. Along with more mobility and freedom came separation anxiety. Suddenly, he needed to be held to fall asleep, at nap time, during the day, and at night. He no longer wanted just his dummy and doo-doo if he woke at night. He wanted to be picked up and held by his mom or dad. By the time he turned 1, his parents were tired. This new clinginess was exhausting, and they longed for the days when the dummy used to work its magic. His parents were both back at their full-time jobs and resenting the 30 to 60 minutes it took to get him down with each waking. After looking for a better way, they found a popular parenting book and decided to give sleep training a go. After all, he'd been such a good sleeper. Surely they could get him back to that. Jed's parents had always been high achievers and they wanted to get this thing right first time. They followed the sleep training program step by step. This meant leaving him to cry for increasing intervals until he fell asleep. After 3 nights of intense protesting, Jed had not taught himself to sleep through the night. He had, however, taught himself to climb out of his cot. He also refused to be put into his cot at all by anybody. It was at this point that his parents made contact with me, as suddenly they had a worse problem on their hands, a 1-year-old who was no longer safe to be left in his cot. The question was this: at how old and when should you move a baby to a bed? We officially have a climber. As I dug to find out what had sparked the climbing, I got this message from his mom. I think it is because we sleep trained him, well, tried. He's basically petrified of the cot. It's so traumatic. Takes us over an hour to get him to nap now in the day, and he screams blue murder even if he is in your arms because he thinks you are going to put him in his cot. He has bruised his chest from trying to escape. But the sleep doctor said we must just do it for a few days and he will adjust. We don't feel comfortable closing his door now. What if he gets hurt as he climbs out of his cot? The solution I suggested was to ditch sleep training and rebuild trust. They could use his existing understanding of language and say bye-bye to his cot. A double mattress was then to be brought into the room and put on the floor to allow Jed and one or both of his parents to fit next to him. It would take time to make him feel safe again. His door was to be left open, as well as his parents' bedroom door, but all other doors in the house were to be closed for safety reasons. It was essential that Jed felt he had access to his parents should he need it. His dad was not so keen on the mattress on the floor idea, so he built a gorgeous wooden house structure that matched their Scandinavian home decor style. Jed responded beautifully to his new big boy bed, and his parents reported that his best time of the day was stories with Dad. I don't know where his parents are sleeping today. They may be playing musical beds every night, but to be honest, as long as there is more shared joy and less shared anxiety, I'm happy with the outcome. Okay, so that's like a concrete example of how things can go from bad to worse when separation anxiety rears its head. And we're going to look at some strategies now of how you can use what you know about social hunger to get a better night's sleep. Okay, so I just want to make this a little bit bigger for you. So, number one, accept help during the day and maybe even at night to allow you time to feel that you are able to attach to your new baby. So, this looks way too small. Let's go back. Okay, so this contact that your baby needs and this reassurance, it can happen throughout the day. It's harder for you if you're back to work full time and your baby's not getting any of you during the day, because then they are going to seek that out at night. So just think carefully about how or when you would like to be able to do that. Are you more of a night bird yourself, and so you're going to have more contact towards the beginning of the night? Are you going to sleep next to your baby the whole night? Are you going to tag team with your partner? Or are you going to go to bed early and get up when your baby wakes, stirs, in the early hours of the morning so that your baby can check in and see that you're there? You can also attach physically daily. So what I mean by this is you can do hugs, you can wear your baby, you can dance with your baby, you can carry your baby around, and you really can, massage your baby, dress your baby, whatever it is, however you want to do it. Have physical contact with your baby every day. And then also use your words. So babies' receptive language is established by the end of the first year. So you can speak to them and explain things to them in nice short sentences and let them know. Like you could tell them, Mom is not going to sleep with you tonight. Mom is going to sleep in her bed. But if I hear you wake up, I'm going to come to you and we'll be back together. So don't worry. But yeah, avoid lying to your baby because this only causes distrust. So don't say to them, no, mommy's not going anywhere. And then perhaps, you go away for work or you go out to socialize. And when your baby wakes up, you're not there, because that is very distressing to them. Okay, so I love this quote by Mama Matters. It says, prepare to bedshare even if you don't plan to bedshare. And the reason I love it is that so many parents swear before they have a baby that they're not going to co-sleep. And then most families end up co-sleeping. And there's so much anxiety about the safety of it because people hear, obviously, all of the warnings about cot death or sudden infant death syndrome. So there are ways to co-sleep safely. If you're still on the fence about it, I would say why I want you to prepare for it is that sometimes co-sleeping will happen reactively. So you're up for the 9th time, you're exasperated, and so you just bring your baby into bed, and this might not be safe. Other times you're so fearful of bringing them in that you end up sitting on a chair or on the couch. And these places are less safe than a bed to sleep with your baby. Okay, so this is by James McKenna. This is how you get safe infant sleep. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you can pause the video here if you want to write these down or take a photo of them and apply them to your situation, to your family. Okay, so then the question I get asked a lot is like, can you send me a picture of the ideal sleeping situation? Or can you tell me where my baby should sleep then? I can't do this because I do not know. I don't know your culture. I don't know what your house is like. But I will tell you this: invest in great mattresses. Don't think that that little mattress that goes in the cot is going to be where your baby's going to sleep every night, because it's probably not going to be. So get the biggest bed you can, and make sure that if you are getting like a single mattress for your baby, that it's a single mattress that can cope with your weight. Because there's nothing worse than landing up kicked out of your own bed, sleeping on your baby or your toddler's mattress and feeling your bum bones going into the floor. It's not cool. I'd also say be open to playing musical beds. What is this? It's the idea that you'll have a plan. You'll go to sleep and you might wake up in a totally different place because things did not go to plan. And that's okay. It will not always be like this. You do not find families of teenagers or families of young, children 9, 10 years old where this happens. It is really a season. It's a season where you have a young baby that's very dependent on you for survival, and this is what they need. Also, find the best way for all of you to find sleep in this hard season. So which one of you has higher sleep needs? Who needs more sleep than the other? Take turns. See if you can sleep in separate rooms away from the baby for the person who's needing a good night's sleep. If one of you is sick, separate. Don't get everybody sick. And also, just to note, often when we have second and third kids, subsequent kids, we don't have these same problems with separation anxiety and difficulty getting people to sleep, because it's almost like the more kids you add, there's safety in numbers, and so the kids don't feel alone. So it is often only your first child that really feels this deep anxiety about not being with you. So I am a big advocate for actually rooming in, helping kids bond with their siblings, and then also sharing rooms rather than having everyone in their own room. There's also times where that's needed. Like I said, I do not know what your house is like. I do not know what your kids are like, but do know that if this is your first child and you really are at the end of your tether, it won't be like this with every child. It does get easier. Okay, so we've reached the end of part 2. Part 3 will be food hunger, and part 4 sensory hunger, and how to use those to help your family get a better night's sleep. Please pop me all your questions. It is called Ask Roxy after all. And I hope that this has been interesting to you. And please let me know more if you want to on the comment section. Bye, guys.